Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Chirigno with the last page of the Chapter 7 test review. So this will cover questions 18, 19, 20, and 21. Question number 18 is talking about Maggie, and it says she now has $3,000 in a savings account that has been earning interest at a rate of 4.7% compounded quarterly. So all of that sounds like problems that you've seen before. There is one thing that's tricky about this problem. This says how much was in the account 4 years ago. Okay, so it's not asking you to project 4 years into the future. It's asking you if she has $3,000 now, how much did she have when she started 4 years ago? Okay, there's a couple of different ways you could go about this. So I'm just going to show you one way here, but if you did it a different way and came up with the same answer, you're welcome to check with me in class and make sure that your method is valid. Okay, I'm going to use that same formula. A equals P times 1 plus R over N to the power of N times T. My principal, I'm going to pretend this $3,000 is my principal. It's like I'm putting $3,000 in there now. And I will explain to you in just a second how we're going to address that with the time. My interest rate was 4.7%, so remembering to move that decimal point, I'm going to do 0.047. And then I'm compounding quarterly, which is 4 times per year. And so this N is also a 4. Now my time is where I need to be careful because it's 4 years in the past. It's like I'm going back in time 4 years. So let's just say that my time is negative 4 years. That's perfectly allowed. So let's type this in. I'm going to type in 3,000 times 1 plus 0.047 divided by 4 to the power of 4 times negative 4. So again, it's like I'm saying, I know it doesn't sound very practical, but it's like I'm saying I'm putting $3,000 in there now and traveling back in time 4 years. Okay, is really how I'm approaching this problem. And you end up with $2,488.57. Okay. Now, if you weren't sure about that answer, you could do this problem again using this as your principal and using just a regular 4 years as your time, and you should come out with about $3,000. Keeping in mind that we did round that decimal off just a little bit, so if it comes out just a little bit off, I would say that you're close enough. Okay, question 19 is a matching problem, and it's asking you to match the power functions with their graphs below. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is split these up as being even or odd, because those graphs look totally different. So y equals x cubed, that's odd. X to the 4th I know is going to be even, x to the 5th will be odd, and x squared will be even. Okay, that just helps me narrow down my options a little bit. So my two odd ones, if I look at these graphs, would be these two, C and D. Okay, and C has sort of that typical curve that we usually see in an odd power function. And if you had a graphing calculator handy, you could actually type in y equals x cubed and see which one this looks like. But you should find that letter C goes with y equals x cubed, which is choice number 1. Now what's different about this D then, just to make sure that that's really right, that it matches up with that one? Do you see that it's like letter C except it's been flipped over? That's what this negative sign does to your graph, is it flips your graph over the x-axis. So it took this portion and put it down here, and it took this portion and put it up here, and that's how we came up with this graph. So that's why this would be y equals negative x to the 5th. Sorry, my tripod's in my way. Now let's look at my two even functions. I have y equals x squared and y equals negative x to the 4th. From back when we did quadratics, hopefully you remember that if there's a positive number in front of x squared, it will point up, and a negative number, it will point down. So I would say this is y equals negative x to the 4th, and I would say this is y equals x squared. Okay? And again, you could check all of those by typing them into a graphing calculator. Okay, number 20 is asking you to simplify. Move it down some. 20 is asking you to simplify. I'm going to follow the same advice I've given you over and over again. This -1 on the outside, I'm not going to worry about it right now. Now, if you did address that first, that -1 would just take this whole fraction and flip it over. So it's entirely possible that you would do it that way as well. But I'm going to start just by simplifying what I have inside the parentheses here. Okay? So I know that this is going to come out to be another fraction. Okay? Here, 12 divided by -4. Oh, and let's break this up. Sorry, that pen's kind of thick for that. 12 divided by -4 is -3. Now keep in mind that that -3 is not a negative exponent. It's just a regular number. So despite the fact that it's negative, that's still going to go up on top because it is not a negative exponent. Now here I have a 5 and a 9. Okay? And when you're dividing with powers, you're going to subtract. So 5 minus 9 gives you -4. So I'll have m to the -4th. A negative exponent means that your power is going to end up on the bottom. So this will really be m to the +4. Because also remember that when you move it to the bottom, it's no longer negative. If that's confusing to you, think about it this way. M to the 5th is like 5 m's. And m to the 9th is like 9 m's on the bottom. It's a hard letter to write 9 of them in a row. And then when they start canceling each other out, you'll have 4 left over, but those 4 will be on the bottom. So hopefully that makes more sense to you if you get confused about why it goes on the bottom. And then here I have n to the 3rd, and I have just a regular n, which is like n to the 1st. 3 minus 1 is 2. That's +2, so that's going to end up on the top. Okay, so far I've just simplified that fraction on the inside. I still have this -1 hanging around out here. Okay, so think about, what does -1 do to a fraction? Well, it doesn't change the value of anything because it's just a 1. But a negative exponent makes a fraction flip to its reciprocal. So this is going to take my final answer and flip it over and give me m to the 4th over -3 n squared. And that's what my final answer should look like for that one. Like I said, some of you may have flipped it all first and then simplified it. You still should come out to the same thing. Okay, question 21. Oh, that terrible Mrs. Torigno decides to spring a pop quiz on you. There are 5 multiple choice questions with 4 options for each question. So right now, let's look at having 5 questions. And if there are 4 options for each question, I want you to think about what's your probability on one question. So if you have 4 choices for this first question, your probability would be 1 out of 4. And it would be 1 out of 4 here, it would be 1 out of 4 here, 1 out of 4 here, and 1 out of 4 here. Now when we've done these problems, we've typically worked with decimals or percentages. There is a way to do it with a fraction, but if you want, let's figure out what decimal 1/4 is. And that decimal is 0.25. So really what I'm doing here is 0.25 times 0.25 times 0.25 times 0.25 times 0.25. Hopefully at this point your brain is screaming out for an easier way to do that. And there is one. Remember, this just means that you're multiplying this same number 5 times in a row, which is doing a power. Okay, that's what this whole chapter has been all about. So all I'm going to do here is 0.25 to the power of 5. Let's see. And 0.25 to the power of 5 on my calculator comes out to be 0.000977. Okay, and I'm not real picky about how far you round. You should go to at least a few decimal places, but now some of your calculators may have given that answer to you in scientific notation. And notice here I give you specific directions. I don't want your answers left in scientific notation. I don't care if you leave your answer as this decimal, or if you move that decimal 2 to the right and make it 0.097%. Okay, either one of those answers would be okay with me. But what I don't want to see on your paper is scientific notation. Okay, so just make sure you keep that in mind. So on this pop quiz that you are not very thrilled about taking, your chances of getting 100% on just a random guess are 0.097%. Okay, that's it for your Chapter 7 test review. Hopefully this has made you feel a little bit more confident about taking that test. We will have time in the next couple of days for you to ask questions over this review, so hopefully that will help you get even more prepared. And if you would like any extra practice on any of these problems, please feel free to let me know. Thanks for watching.